Good day, Munir Ajam with Uruk Project Management. And in this short video, I want to talk about why did we start Uruk. And obviously, we're doing this as part of our educational series to help raise funds for the Uruk platform. But in this video, I want to focus on why did we start Uruk. Personally, I came from a project management background. I started my career as a civil engineer working on projects. And then I decided to go back to University of California at Berkeley, did a master's degree in engineering and construction management. And that was 32 years ago. And with that degree, with my master's degree, I started working in project management in the oil and gas, petrochemical industry. And I had about 15 years experience in that domain. After that period of time, I decided to start a company. At that time, I was working back in West Asia. And I started SUCAD in Dubai ideally as a project management consultancy. However, what we find out is there is a lot of need for training. And at that time, project management still was not as known or as popular or as recognized or as appreciated as a domain, as an independent domain, especially in West Asia, where I was working outside the traditional industry, which would mean, the capital project industry, oil and gas sector. Project management was still relatively new, if existing at all. So as we start to go out and to provide services to clients in the area, there's a lot of demand for training, and we started to do a lot of training, including project management certification training and related topics. However, what we discovered, there is a gap in practice. So when we talk to organization, even when we are doing training on certification, and we explain to them, for example, the PMI framework, the PMBOK guide that leads to PMP certification, which is at that time was almost non-existing in West Asia, and I mean very limited popularity, but it was starting to gain popularity, and we were among the few people who were helping in promoting professional project management, including project management, formalized project management framework, including certification. And what we discovered is that as we were helping people learn project management, whether they want to learn the PMI framework to have knowledge on project management, or whether they were preparing for certification. And we talk about knowledge areas and process groups and different things and risk management. And people would come back to us and will tell us, Munir, we understand what you're saying. However, how do we apply it in the real world? In one of the classes I was doing, I was asked, I had actually a very interesting group, and I had a group of people from one of our clients, and one of them was doing a PhD. A few people were from marketing, strategic planning, training. So there's quite a bit of diversity in the audience. And everyone would ask me, said, Munir, how do I apply it in my domain? And I was talking here to the PR person. I was talking, well, you have one of the things you do, you establish budget, for example. I said, budget, what is that? I don't have budget. I don't control my budget. My boss controls the budget. So what we discovered in that workshop, and that was, I mean, the same kind of statement we are hearing in other workshops, but specifically in that workshop because of the diversity of the group, is that how do I apply these project management for me? In my domain, if I am in accounting, or I'm in PR, or I'm doing a PhD research, or I'm in strategic planning, or in training, how do I apply the project management principles concept to my domain? At that night, I had a dinner with a couple of visiting colleagues. They were visiting from outside the UAE. I was working in Dubai at that time, and I said, guys, do we have anything? Is there anything that exists that provide practical application of the project management knowledge for different domains? And the three of us, each one of us had at least 20 years experience, at that time. And we struggled to come up with an answer. So that night we decided to do something about it, is that how do we develop a methodological approach for helping individuals and organizations manage projects across the life cycle from inception to closure, or what I like to call concept to success. How do we do that? That was one challenge. The second challenge is that how do we make that customizable, tailorable, adaptable enough to apply for different sectors, different domain, different types of project, different size and class and complexity of project. That was our challenge. And as with my colleague, we decided to do something about it. Unfortunately, my colleague disappeared on me. So I ended up working and developing what we call at that time CAMMP, which is a customizable and adaptable methodology for managing projects. We realize project management have a lot of common features across domain and industries. However, there are in each domain or project type, there are some specialties that need to be addressed. And that was our primary interest, is to create a methodological approach that we can adapt based on the context and of the project. That was in 2007. And at that time, I started developing the CAMMP methodological approach, and I started to publish articles about it and end up publishing books about it, delivered many workshops for clients on that. And what we recognize is that when we are developing and when we are training our client, initially every client would come to us and said, we want PMP, we want the PMI framework, because that was the most famous. As we discussed with our client and said, look, we have an applied approach that incorporate, okay, the PMI framework. It doesn't compete with it. It doesn't exclude it. It doesn't ignore it. It doesn't contradict it. It actually takes things that PMI produce. And at that time, I was also becoming familiar with IPMA, which is the International Project Management Association. And you know, I had experience with the advanced AACE, which is the Association for the Advancement of Cost Engineer. So I had quite a bit of exposure for different framework and association, not only PMI. So I said, okay, what do we do? What we need to do is to take that approach and focus on the application of project management. Theory is great, but how do we convert the theory into real-world application and for different domains? So when we started to talk to clients, they said, you know, we like the idea. We like the idea of applied project management, especially when we, in the workshop, we actually get them to bring their own project and work on that. And soon as we progress, we start to get more clients asking for that. And then when we give a choice to a client, you know, you want PMI framework alone, or you want PMP certification, or you want the applied approach, which is based on the CAMMP methodologies that we have developed. And it gets to the point where the dominant training we were offering is based on CAMMP. And here we started to hear a lot of that, you know, this is great. I wish there is a software application that helped me do that. And that was the trigger for us to start to consider an app based on CAMMP. That was about 5-6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, I don't know. The problem was, you know, as a company that is based on training and knowledge, you're limited on budget. So we couldn't launch Uruk at that time until the early 2019. And here we decided, look, we need to do something. And a few colleagues of mine said, why don't we start a division at that time, because my company was still in Dubai, or at least relaunch in the US or anywhere else. We chose the US because obviously I'm a US citizen and I can come back and work easily here, and which would be better to do a company, a startup in the US versus Lebanon, for example. Or even UAE. At that time, startup in the UAE were almost the startup ecosystem was quite weak still. So we said, why don't we do this? And those few people that came around, some of them I've never met, and but they follow me online. Some of them I've known maybe many years ago. They're taking courses with me, or we have had phone calls or online meetings, but we've never really met many of them. And of course, some people I know from the project management colleagues and even some relatives. And in early 2019, basically around April, May timeframe, we agreed to form SUCAD in the US, which should become the Uruk Project Management now. And Actually, today is June 7th. June 12th is officially our 3rd year anniversary where we registered Uruk in the US, in Delaware, and in Texas. And since then, we've been focusing on the Uruk platform, initially under the Sukat Corp name, and recently we did what they call here in the States, for those of you who don't understand or work or understand the US system, is you can register also the company, which is Sukat Corp, still the official company name, but as doing business as. So they call it DBA, as the Uruk Project Management. So now we have adopted the official name of Uruk Project Management and working on the Uruk platform. I'm not going to talk about Uruk today, the platform, or any other thing. I just want to share a bit of history about how Uruk and the Uruk platform came about. Thank you, and have a great day.